Hello, I'm Ron Bemke, and I'm very proud to have been on the original design team for Steel Canyon, as well as one of our lead petitioners of our charter. At the beginning of the year this year, I came to you, the board, to ask you to join me on a journey as I wrote a little history about Steel Canyon and some proposals that I thought would help us make a breakthrough to greatness. My motivation originally came from a place between frustration and hope. But tonight, I'd like to just concentrate on hope. The end of Don Tapscott's TED Talk really encapsulates my hope.
To me, this is not an information age. It's an age of networked intelligence. It's an age of vast promise, an age of collaboration where the boundaries of our organizations are changing, of transparency where sunlight is disinfecting civilization, an age of sharing and understanding the new power of the commons, and it's an age of empowerment and of freedom. Now, what I'd like to do is, to close, to share with you some research that I've been doing. I've tried to study all kinds of organizations to understand what the future might look like. But I've been studying nature recently. You know, bees come in swarms and fish come in schools. Starlings in the area around Edinburgh, in the moors of England, come in something called a murmuration. And the murmuration refers to the murmuring of the wings of the birds. And throughout the day, the starlings are out over a 20-mile radius, sort of doing their starling thing. And at night, they come together and they create one of the most spectacular things in all of nature. And it's called a murmuration. And scientists that have studied this have said they'd never seen an accident. Now, this thing has a function. It protects the birds. You can see on the right here, there's a predator being chased away by the collective power of the birds. And apparently this is a frightening thing if you're a predator of starlings. And there's leadership, but there's no one leader. Now, is this some kind of fanciful analogy, or could we actually learn something from this? Well, the murmuration functions to accord a number of principles, and they're basically the principles that I've described to you today. This is a huge collaboration. It's an openness. There's a sharing of all kinds of information, not just about location and trajectory and danger and so on, but about food sources. And there's a real sense of interdependence. The individual birds somehow understand that their interests are in the interests of the collective. Perhaps like we should understand that the business can't succeed in a world that's failing. Well, I look at this thing and I get a lot of hope. Think about the kids today in the Arab Spring, and you see something like this that's underway. And imagine, just consider this idea, if you would. What if we could connect ourselves in this world through a vast network of air and glass? Could we go beyond just sharing information and knowledge? Could we start to share our intelligence? Could we create some kind of collective intelligence that goes beyond an individual or a group or a team to create perhaps some kind of consciousness on a global basis? Well, if we could do this, we could attack some big problems in the world. And I look at this thing and I don't know, I get a lot of hope that maybe this smaller, networked, open world that our kids inherit might be a better one. And that this new age of networked intelligence could be an age of promise fulfilled and of peril unrequited. Let's do this. Thank you.
Don Tapscott's 4 principles for the open world, collaboration, transparency, sharing, and empowerment, are really the things that we felt as we were developing Steel Canyon with the design team. And our challenge wasn't a predator, it was to design a new school for a new century. We came together with that same kind of synergy when we did face a predator, the Grossmont District. But after a couple of years of becoming a charter, we kind of forgot how to fly together. We haven't felt that same synergy in a long time, that collaboration, transparency, sharing, and empowerment. And that's really my hope, is that we can get back to that so that we can make a breakthrough to greatness and build an organization that will last. But how do we do that? And where do we begin? Well, I believe we begin by reestablishing our core, and we reestablish that core so we can preserve the core to stimulate progress. So let's look at our core. Jim Collins in Built to Last really does emphasize the importance of a core, and then he goes further in Good to Great to describe the core as the intersection of three circles. The first circle being what you're most passionate about. And for Steel Canyon, we're most passionate about our mission and vision. Then the second circle that Collins describes is what can we be best in the world at. And Steel Canyon started, and we still believe we can be best at our Esslers. And then the third core in Good to Great with Collins is, what is the driver of your economic engine? Well, we don't have an economic engine. We work with young adults. So what is the driver of our organization? And so when you look at that, the obvious answer should be teachers and coaches and advisors and so forth who work with kids on a day-to-day basis. That's the interface that's the most important. And I really think that that's the circle of all the circles we need to concentrate most on. I do believe we need to bring our mission and vision more to the forefront of what we do, and same with our Esslers. Instead of being in the background like we did when we were doing the design for Steel Canyon, we need to bring them into the foreground. They need to be part of what we do. Everybody needs to know them by heart and their intricacies. But back to the driver, the teachers. I think the best way the thing we need the most for reestablishing our core is to really look at valuing and using input of teachers and staff. And I think the way you as a board can really help with that is to be informed about that, but then also to flip our organizational pyramid. So when you flip the pyramid, it's what Nordstrom did in Good to Great. It was brought out in Good to Great. They had their salespeople be at the top of their pyramid, and they had their board at the bottom. And they understood that the important part, the interface between customers and salespeople, was the important part of their organization. So teachers and coaches and who are interacting with the students, they're the ones who, at a primary level, where the rubber meets the road, are going to influence student success in our other two circles. And so by flipping our organizational pyramid and putting teachers at the top and creating a foundation that starts with the board, and that foundation builds up through the teachers to the much greater interactive interface between students and teachers, that will go a long way in helping us get back to the business of greatness. Once we've re-engaged with our core, and we have a core to preserve, then we need to stimulate progress. And the way we can stimulate progress, and what we need to do in order to stimulate progress, is we need to finish our clock. By finishing our clock, I mean doing all of those things that I talk about in chapters 12 through 16, and I summarize or make a list like this list on page 106. Finishing our clock means doing all those things that we didn't do. We didn't take care of some details and some systems and structures and elements that are now in hindsight missing in order to keep Steel Canyon flying, to keep us flying together, to keep us pursuing greatness. And I obviously don't have time to go through this whole list tonight, but the bolded elements here are the elements specifically that the board can help with and help assist us in our clock finishing. The unbolded things are up to us and Dawn and everybody at school to do. So the board's roles in helping us finish our clock are in three categories: guarding our core, being fully informed, and cultivating leadership. So the first area the board can help us finish building our clock and to maintain our organization is to recognize and support our core. And then the main way you can do that is to flip our organizational pyramid and recognize teachers as the drivers of our organization. And then to be our foundational hedgehogs and to protect our core and make sure that we are that progress is being stimulated. The second area for the board to support finishing our clock is for the board to be fully informed. Right now, the board gets reports from ASB and the students, which is great. But the board also needs to hear from our other stakeholders, teachers directly, and also classified employees, and also parents. And one way to do that is to get regular reports from our associations and also the PTO. I also think it's very important that if we're going to be transparent, that the board gets direct reporting from a Cougar Council chair on how our governance structure is running. And then finally, one of the main tenets of Good to Great and Built to Last is you need to get quality people in your organization. You need to get the right people on the bus and in the right seats, and you need to keep them. And so I think it's very important that the board, if quality people are leaving, the board gets an idea of why they're leaving so that we can face brutal facts and stop that from happening. And the third area where the board can really help finish our clock is through cultivating leadership. Cultivating the kind of leadership that to preserve our core and stimulate progress by using our shared decision governance structure and systems and fostering interdependence among the entire staff, including the leadership team. To develop leadership through professional development and coaching and promote leadership from within. It's really tough to get people from outside to understand how we're unique and different. And it's really important that when somebody does come from outside, that if we do hire from outside, that there's a rigorous hiring protocol with an in-depth application interview process and then followed up through indoctrination program and continued professional development. And I think there should be ongoing development for our leadership that's supported by the board, but again with the focus on creating this environment that Don Tapscott mentioned with collaboration, transparency, sharing, and empowerment staff-wide. So to summarize, by the board's help in guarding our core, being fully informed, and cultivating leadership, you can help us go a long way toward finishing our clock. So let's do this. Let's reestablish our core, finish our clock, become interdependent, make a breakthrough to greatness, and build an organization that will last. We are SC. Go Cougars.